Welcome to the Blonde Highlight Show. Give it up for your hosts, Kris and Kyle Hennessy.
Welcome back to Blonde Highlights.
On today's episode, we have a very special guest. She was on America's Next Top Model Cycle 24. She is the founder of House of Anomaly. Give it up for Jeana Turner. We were really excited about doing this episode and also kind of like diving into this world and everything you guys all went through on America's Next Top Model and what's happened since then, because me and Kris have both worked around that industry for our entire careers. Kris being a model and me doing hair and working on set in the fashion industry for a long time. So I felt like we're qualified a little bit to talk about some of this.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree. We all come from the same world.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So with the new show coming out that has, I think, opened up a can of worms for a lot of people and has brought up a lot. Kyle, what was your thought on the name?
Yes. Them naming it Reality Check. What did you think of that name?
I think it's bullshit because there's nothing. I feel like I don't ever want to discredit or take away from the stories of the girls that shared their, emotional traumas and what really happened behind the scenes. That's very, very valid. But I feel like on the opposite end to have involved, Tyra and Nigel and Jay and Miss J and people who were rooted in judging and like the more authoritative positions. I could speak very highly for the Jays and Nigel for speaking to their truth in the slightest way that they did. But I don't really think that there's anything that was a reality check about it. I feel like when you say the term reality check, that comes with like, hey, newsflash. And I don't think that there was accountability to like within it to name it something like reality check. I feel like reality check would have been forcing Tyra to really see the flaws that were in there. And I don't really think there was a push to really get her to understand what was truly wrong. It was more defensive on her end, I feel like.
Yes.
And in a way, like, I don't really even know the word for it, but like enabling her own bad behavior. And finding an excuse within all the things that were wrong. I feel like whenever something was brought up that was wrong, she found an excuse as to, well, this is why it was okay at the time, instead of reframing it in a sense of taking ownership for her contribution to such a flawed system at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I saw there was another girl that had said that when she originally signed on to do that, Tyra wasn't on the show. And so I wonder if Tyra came on last minute I'm going to come in and just be defensive.
Yeah, I do know. Have some insider knowledge as far as that goes, because I do talk to all of the girls. Not all of them, but a lot of us who have been very outspoken. We all kind of communicate together. And I do know that as they all signed their NDA to do that show, there was no mention of Tyra and she was not involved. And when they did ask if she was going to be involved, the word from that production team was that they have not heard from her and that Tyra's not going to be involved. And I guess it was a last minute add in where after all those girls shared their stories, suddenly Tyra was like, okay, I want to talk. And I know a lot of them are really frustrated and pissed off because they wanted to do a documentary that she didn't have any involvement in.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't like that.
Neither.
I don't like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to come in since she knows that there's going to be some shit talk about her, that she's going to come in on her defense. Now, this was kind of my thing. So being in the industry I've been modeling since 2009.
Okay.
I understand the difference between what the industry was like at that time. And, it's kind of one of those things where the agents did have that pressure to fit what the beauty standard was at that time. And as we've grown, we all know that there's the ebbs and flows of beauty standards, even towards body size, everything, right? Yeah. All the inclusivity. But to me, it's why would you bring people on then that aren't going to fit that mold at all? That was my thing, because seeing all the torture and all of the just like the psychological damage that was being done. It's like, why bring these girls on then when you know from the beginning that at that time, the beauty standard isn't going to match up with who you're bringing on?
Exactly. And her whole premise of starting that show, I mean, she has said in countless interviews how it was to change the beauty industry and get them to see the oddities and like the beauties that aren't typically considered beautiful in that industry. So if that was your goal initially, why then revert back to what the industry actually wants if your whole premise is to change it? That to me was like the weirdest thing. And I can attest to that because and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later too, but I did Playboy prior to going on to America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, you know, start that show with 0 accolades, 0 credit, 0 resumes, 0 portfolio, 0 anything, right? That's like their starting point. But for me, it wasn't. And so I established a lot of like pretty credential things for myself beforehand, and Playboy being one of them. And so for me, I didn't go into it braggadocious and saying like, well, I've done Playboy. Like I kind of knew to not really put that on the forefront, and not because I thought it was going to be problematic, just because I knew it wasn't going to be conducive to that environment, because it didn't matter. We're talking about fashion. It's totally different, right? So it got mentioned, but it wasn't like my highlight. It wasn't something that I was just braggadocious about. And they knew about this. I mean, I did one of my interviews for my casting interviews while I was on set shooting a pictorial for Playboy. And so it wasn't like a foreign topic. They definitely knew about it. I didn't keep it a secret. And when I went into the show later on, it was like they slandered me and slut shamed me for having done it when I didn't even want to mention it. I was kind of forced to mention it by Tyra and Ashley Graham. And I wanted them to say the word Playboy, but they would not say it, right? So I was like, okay, let me just say it so we can get past this topic. But for it to later on, you know, halfway through the season be used against me as if it was something terrible. And it's like, you guys knew that that was something that I had done prior. So if that was going to be a problem as far as my character, and you didn't want a girl on the show who had done Playboy and it made her look bad, then why have me on? You're using it as a storyline point and as a degrading, like you know, like demonizing someone's character. Then at that point, if it was going to turn out to be something that you're using against me, just don't put me on the show. If it was something you're going to use to discredit my abilities to do fashion, then don't put me on there. Like kind of that same thing, you know?
Yeah. But I guess I feel like, obviously, especially, I hate using the word like at that time, but that's what made good television.
Right.
You know, it's not right. Is there anything that was happening like behind the scenes or anything that you know about that we didn't see? Were there any like experiences, like not to like talk about somebody else's experience like fully, but like were there things that were happening that you even maybe wanted to address or should have been addressed? Or
yes. So I won't say names. I'll just say 2 girls.
Yeah.
But I mean, and if you go back and look at my exposés and stuff on YouTube, you could find out who. But yes, there was, from my memory, there was 2 girls who later we were informed by I call them our house moms, but they're kind of like our wranglers. They're the ones you see. They go get us panties and tampons and everything from the store when we need it. But we were informed by them that these 2 girls did not pass the psych evaluations on the show, and that was a big reason why their characters were so explosive and combative, and they heavily disliked each other. And one night so we had like 2 to 3 camera crews at a time. There'd be, you know, one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, one upstairs. So they were always filming at all aspects. We were filmed 24/7, but those camera crews were not there 24/7. They were there throughout the day. And when they left, then you get the footage of like, you know, the surveillance footage that's in the cameras that are in our room that are aerial and whatnot. But one of those 2 girls bullied the other severely. And it was kind of like a predator and prey situation. And late one night after the camera crew had left, there was only, not every spot in our house had surveillance cameras or had an angle where those cameras could see. And we can tell when those are. If you can see a camera, it can see you, basically. So this girl kind of used that to her benefit and intentionally cornered that girl and threatened her life off camera. And this is about 2:00 in the morning. I think it was one of our first nights of filming in the actual house. And that girl did not feel safe to sleep in her bed based off of what she said. So she took a step back, went on something that we call the bat phone, which is this telephone in our house that we can take off the phone and it automatically rings production and they always pick up if we need something last minute, a towel, a broom, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So she goes to the bat phone and she just lets production know that she doesn't feel safe sleeping in the house and that she really would like to go to a hotel for her own safety. And production honored that and told her that she could go to a hotel. So she goes to a hotel for the night and they promised her that she'd be able to come back. The next day was an elimination day. And so we didn't get reconnected with her again. Instead, they brought her to the studio before deliberations and put her in a room with Tyra. And they kind of conducted it as if she was telling Tyra that she didn't want to be in the house and that the girls were, it was too toxic for her and blah, 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 blah. But that's not the reality. She was promised that she could come back into the house. And they told her at that time that because she left the house that night, that she was in breach of the contract and that she had to go home. Right. So that girl, they conducted an exit story for that girl based off of her feeling unsafe from another girl threatening her. And then she was forced to go home. Like, could you imagine going home forcefully because someone else threatened you and no one else protected you, and then they lied about your story on TV, and that sucks. And that's something that no one really knows, but the audience just sees it as like, she didn't want to do this. She just wanted to go home. She wasn't strong enough mentally to do it. And that's not the case. I don't know if somebody threatened me too. I'm a combative person, like, bitch, bring it on. We can throw hands, but that's how I am. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm very different. I don't know if I would go to a hotel, but I definitely would have, like, that probably would have changed my character in a sense, but I don't think her character was like that. She's not that type of person. She was very much the prey in that scenario, and she felt unsafe. And I feel like that should have been validated and acknowledged, but because Tyra was so busy trying to keep that other girl in the competition because she knew her character was so aggressive and that she was going to be a monster to other girls, that she had to, like, manipulate why that girl left in order to justify why this girl is still here.
This girl's staying.
Yeah. And I noticed that throughout, and hearing people's stories from behind the scenes, is that production and even Tyra too, anyone that was a victim of something or anyone who didn't comply blindly to something they shouldn't have been asking to do in general, they just eliminated. They got rid of them. They're like, you're a problem.
Yep. And if it wasn't an elimination, it was a character assassination where you're suddenly the villain. Yes. Or you suddenly go from so strong and have a voice to all of a sudden you have no confidence and you lost it. Like, they play with that with the audience so much, and the audience has no idea because it's so seamless in the way that they edit that and transition that. But that's more often than not what happens.
How much of production do you think, like, just from, you've obviously, spent time with Tyra and you've seen her on and off camera. How much of production do you think she actually had control of? Like, do you think that she was, like, that she had it all kind of taken away from her and she didn't really have a say? Or do you think, like, she was in the writing room?
From the amount of interviews that have dropped from Howard Stern and, her talk show and things that I have seen recently that I have not seen in the past, I do think that she was in the writing room. I do think she had full control. Maybe not full control, but collaborative control over narratives. I do think she was heavily involved.
Is there anything that, outside of, like, the interviews and stuff, was there anything that you maybe personally saw not filming that viewers didn't see that would also be like, okay, yeah, she clearly was a part of this?
I can't sit there and say that I've seen anything directly. I can't speak for other girls, but I can attest to the fact that my season was curated so different than so many other seasons. We probably got the least interactions with Tyra herself. And I think if you look at, like, Shandy's season, or other seasons, there's a lot of times where, like, Tyra comes to the house and and or she comes and like she cooks dinner with them, they sit down and they eat together, you know, or they go out to eat together, or she comes to dinner with them and there's like these sit down talks for a while. I mean, dinner is not a 5 minute thing. And my season didn't have any of that. There was like a huge lack of Tyra's integration with the girls on a personal level. And I feel
Okay.
like as the years went on, like that detachment became more and more. She started really like involved with the girls, almost like a big sister, and then it just turned into just nothing. So I can't like attest to anything as far as like seeing anything in person, because I really didn't see her besides like in the judging room. And even then, I'm not talking to her personally. She's deliberating other photos for girls. So, you know, there's not much I can say for like interaction with her in person and like what I've seen her do and not do. But there is one thing that happened with me, and this doesn't get talked about a lot. And I'm hoping that they kind of talk about it on the eDoc. But in case they don't, I'm going to talk about it here. And there was, okay, so the girl that I told you guys had threatened the other girl, but she stayed.
Mm-hmm.
So her and I were friends prior to that happening. After that happened, I disassociated with her because my logic was guilt by association. And I kind of knew that if she was going to be like that with that girl, then she could potentially turn on me. So
Yes.
I chose to kind of separate from being her friend. And her character just started changing after that in real life. And so her and I shared a bed. So because I wasn't mean to her, I just kind of, she was a fly on the wall to me. Because I kind of changed how I acknowledged her, I guess. She started kind of saying like really crazy things to me. And
Okay.
she made the executive decision to leave out of the shared bed that we had and move into what I call the red room, but it's our library room with a couch, but like the carpet's red, the couch is red, the bookshelf is red, all of the books are red. Every accessory in decor in that room is red. And like, if you know anything about psychology and the color theory, I think that explains a lot about her characteristic. Like, I wouldn't move into an all red room.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
it invokes anger, and psychologically it does. I think a lot of people don't know that, but it would. And so I think a couple days after she had done that, there was a challenge with Jordan Dunn, and I didn't know I was winning the challenge, but Jordan Dunn and Tyra had come into the house with us to do this challenge, and it was a self-shot thing. You had to put together an outfit, and then you had to do a selfie. It was like an influencer type of like, who can do the best influencing type of photo. And while they're deliberating, we're all downstairs in our living room. Tyra, Jordan, and production is all upstairs. One of the production people comes downstairs and grabs me and says, "Hey, I need to bring you upstairs really quick. We have a question for you." And I'm like, okay, weird. And the entire cast is looking like, and by this time, my character assassination hadn't really started yet. So the cast was assuming like I would hear all season long from these girls. You're the one they want to win. You're the one they want to win. We can tell that you're the winner. They specialize. They cater to you like you're their favorite, blah, 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 blah. Just from the treatment that was going on from production, they purposely would like do things in front of the girls to almost make them hate me.
Yeah.
It was completely out of my control, but production would like just be really sweet and nice to me at first. And like the girls hated that. They were like, obviously they love you.
Yeah.
And so them taking me upstairs, the girls were like, they're gonna sit there. Like in their minds, they were telling the girls that they were telling me that I won the challenge before I got downstairs.
Oh my
And
God.
I didn't know anything about that. I was like, okay, well, fuck, this is weird. Like they've never taken a girl in the middle of a challenge upstairs to talk to production. So I go up the stairs and they take me behind a curtain, and Tyra Banks is standing there with a producer named Jamie.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. And Jamie's the only one talking. Tyra's standing there completely quiet. But Jamie goes, "Jeana, do you have a phone in the house?" And I was like, a phone? And I call this the intake process, but when we first start our involvement with Top Model, they put us in a hotel for a week and isolate us completely by ourselves with no cameras, no nothing. The entire time we're doing psych evaluations, one-on-one, each person is meeting with PAs and all these people. So that takes about a week, but you're isolated in a hotel room for a week. And at that time, they take your phone, they take your keys, they take every personal belonging that you have, they take any items of clothing that have like a Victoria's Secret pink or a Nike logo on it because they don't want to pay for the rights to use that on TV and they don't want to pay to blur it out, right? So they're going through everyone's clothes, everyone's shit, but you turn over everything. The first thing they take from you is your phone. That's the very first thing they take. At the time, I mean, I was 23 years old. My mom still paid my phone bill. Like I was still on my mom's phone plan. So I couldn't afford my own phone, you know? So the second they took my phone, I'm like, well, there's that, you know? I definitely didn't have money for a second phone.
Yeah.
Ask me, like to say to me, do you have a phone? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, you guys took my phone and put it in a plastic bag with my name on it, with my keys and everything else, like weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, what? And I was like, no. I was like, no, I don't have a phone. And she like cocks her head and looks at me and she's like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm positive you guys took my phone. And I said, and furthermore, I mean, Tyra's right here. I was like, and furthermore, that's a breach of our fucking contract. Like, you guys know that you have our phones. Why would I intentionally bring something into the house that I know is a breach of contract that could get me sent home? Like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And they were like, and I said, why are you asking me that? And they were like, Jamie goes, because we have reason to believe that you have a phone in the house.
What the hell?
What the fuck is the reason to believe? Like, what? And I was like, well, I don't. Like, I don't know what else you want me to tell you. And so she was like, then Tyra's just looking back and forth as we're talking and like kind of just side-eyeing. And I was just like, fuck, because now they just put me in front of Tyra and this like weird situation about this damn phone. You know, it was really weird. And then they just send me back downstairs. And and when they send me back downstairs, they tell me, do not tell the other girls what we spoke to you about up here. This needs to stay private and confidential and between us. I was like, okay. As soon as I got down the stairs, I said, one of you bitches has a fucking phone. I said it out loud. I was like, I'm not about to sit here and be quiet about anything because I had already known that those girls thought that they took me upstairs to tell me something special or something secret. So I was like, one of you bitches in here has a phone, and whoever it is, you guys need to confess to that. And I said, because they're blaming me for having a fucking phone in this house and I don't have it. And I said, so whoever it is, you guys need to own up to it. And I was like, and they're just like all looking around and like all confused and dumbfounded. And I could tell the producers were fucking so mad at me that I went downstairs and told the girls, but I wasn't giving them any more ammo to hate me. They had already hated me.
No.
And then sure enough, they come downstairs and they announce that the challenge winner was me. So the girls are just like, I don't know if they knew even what to think at this point, whether I was lying or telling the truth. And because I went downstairs and spilled the beans about what they talked to me about upstairs, all of the producers come downstairs. They sat all of us down on our couch. There's no cameras. There's no nothing. Every fucking producer was standing in front of us. And they had told us, listen, someone in this house has a phone. And we know someone has a phone in this house. We're not going to send you home because of it, but whoever it is, we had a table, a dining room table with this little box on our table. She said, whoever it is in the house who has a phone, you have until 7 o'clock in the morning to return that phone to this box right here. No questions asked, no harm, nor no foul. And she was like, but there's a phone in this house. And the whole time I'm sitting there and I was like, looking at the girls, I'm like, yeah, so who the fuck was it? Like, yeah, me, you know, like you guys are so busy trying to fucking villainize me and I didn't do anything. But what that did tell me in the meantime was something else. So that girl, none of this is on camera. That girl who I shared the bed with, who also threatened that other girl, immediately, as soon as cameras came back downstairs, immediately it was like, everyone bring your bags into the living room. I want to go through your bags. I want to go through your stuff. She was like the only person. I mean, people had questions about who had the phone, but she was the only person who was actively searching people's shit to the point where she stood on a table, and unscrewed a light socket to see if someone had stashed a phone in the light socket. And look, I know a lot of people think that I'm like sweet and I come from like a great world and nothing bad has ever happened to me in my life. No, I'm gully as fuck. I grew up in the projects. I'm very street smart. I have a lot of that behind me, but I put on a good front, right?
Yeah.
People who are in, people don't do that shit unless you come from the streets or you've been locked up or you know how people stash shit in certain spots. People don't do stuff like what she was doing unless they have that type of mindset, right? And so for me, I'm like, bitch, you have the phone. And also, you shared a bed with me. If they have a reason to believe, and you were right next to me in the closet, if they have reason to believe that I was the one with the phone, who's to say they didn't hear a vibrating phone right next to my shit and just assume that it's me, but it's yours?
Oh my God.
Yes.
Also, that girl is the same girl who told me and another castmate on the first night in the house on camera, which they also never shared, that she didn't turn in a phone because she didn't have one. The same girl also told me that she traps. I won't explain. Well, I guess I'll explain what trapping is because a lot of people don't know. Trapping is selling drugs illegally out of your house, your car, whatever, right? You don't trap in 2018 with no phone.
With no phone. Yeah.
Just don't, whether it's a burner, a brick, whatever it is, you cannot trap in 2018 with no phone. So how are you going to tell me and another contestant on camera that you moved into the house and didn't turn in a phone because you don't have one? Explain to me how you got from your airplane to a PA that was picking you up at the airport. How are you going to find them? Probably a phone.
Mm-hmm. A phone.
So you're telling me you didn't turn in a phone, so that means that you have a phone. You have to have a phone in this house. You have to.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I was told again later on from our house moms that the phone was disposed of off of the end of our balcony and thrown down the cliff in Hollywood Hills.
That's so dramatic.
At the same time, that girl was just like the girl that she bullied out of the house. She was conducted an exit interview for that did not mention anything about a phone. It was that she was mentally not fit to be at the house anymore. So yes, it was a breach of contract for her having the phone, but because they couldn't be honest about the phone, they faked her exit and made it something else other than what it really was. And then we never heard about the phone ever again.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
This show, honestly, it's creepy. It's really creepy.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Yeah.
Well, it just became
Oh
a
my
show about exploiting people's insecurities and, you know, trauma, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and how do you be your best self when you're trying to like, you know, further your craft and like, how do you be your best self in that realm when they're constantly throwing all these weird shit at you? You know what I mean? Like, why do I want to think about a phone or like all this big curated bullshit in a house that has really nothing to do with me while I'm on set for a shoot? And then they take that and they say something crazy to you. And it's like, well, now I can't even think straight because you guys are making...
Yeah, now I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm not even here.
Yeah, it was just very exhausting.
Yeah.
So,
Can I
do you wanna
ask
do
one thing? And this is something as someone who works in glam and that world, I am acutely aware of how what I do affects people's self-image and insecurities.
Yeah.
Did you hold any sort of resentment against Law Roach for really just kind of like going in on that scene with the removing the wig and everything?
Yeah, I did, especially because this, for some reason, I have shared this aspect so many times and people are completely fucking avoiding it. Even like, you know, no shade to Vice or anything, but so many of these networks work around what I'm really trying to say. And they just focus on that narrative of like, oh, she had her hair shaved off, this story, this poor pitiful girl, alopecia this, alopecia that. It is the reason why I'm fucking crying. It's not because I was against them showing my bald head.
Yeah.
The truth is I was told I was getting a wig as my makeover. I got to the salon thinking I was getting a wig. That's what they told me. And they said, hey, you know how we told you that we were giving you a wig? Law said this. Hey, you know how we said we were giving you a wig as your makeover? With his hands behind his back. And he said, psych, and takes out a fucking razor and says that we're bicking your head in front of all of these girls, in front of everybody at the salon. Last minute, right before they sat me down in the chair. No one is talking about that part. So that's what pisses me off, is because if I went in with a wig,
Yeah.
and they're telling me, we're going to put another wig on you. I'm not stupid. I know people are going to see my bald head at some point. I probably have to be bald somewhere in between that process, right? But I'm not thinking that they're going to sit there and shave my head after they just told me 24 hours ago that I was getting a wig and that's what I was expecting. So they purposely had a shock and awe, like they did that on purpose. And that's what I was so mad about. So again, I cry when I'm pissed. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was crying because I was pissed the fuck off and they were changing an entire narrative and I couldn't speak about it. At least not in the moment. I was just fucking mad that that's what they were doing. So for him to be a part of that, hey, this is what we're doing, and then sit and know that that was complete bullshit, and then sit in front of me and hold my hands the way that he did and fake cry and with no tears coming out of your eyes, no nothing. That was completely bullshit. It was full blown acting. And like, as I'm crying, like, do you know what that looks like to a person who is actually deeply rooted in their emotions in the moment and you're sitting there faking being, you know, empathetic? to their situation.
That's disgusting.
It's crazy. And so when he's like fake crying, and I do remember there was a moment I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, because it was just fake to me. And that part aired. But it was just completely fucking fake. And then he's like, oh, look at you, you're so beautiful. Like touching my fucking face. Like
no.
Like
no.
It was very weird. It was very performative. And then in the process of me bawling like that, I mean, I was fucking hysterical because I was so mad and I couldn't go anywhere. I mean, all the entire cast members, I was in the middle of the salon. Everyone was around me staring at me. Every camera crew that they had was pointed at me. Every light that they had was pointed at me. Every stylist in the salon was next to me. And I was just like this, all while there was the wig that I was supposed to be wearing sitting behind me. And you can see that.
Oh my God, that's so...
Talk about that. Yeah, it was sitting on a mannequin head right behind me, and you could see it in the mirrors. And it just felt so fucking... I was so mad, and I couldn't just leave. I couldn't go anywhere. And the second you run to the bathroom, they follow you with the cameras. So I was like, there's no point in doing that.
There's no point.
But I'm hysterical. And in the process of that, like, I wouldn't stop crying. So it was affecting other people's scenes now while they're getting their makeover, because you can hear me and see me in the background. So they needed to stop that before they could move on. And Ken Mock comes out of this tiny back closet at the salon and tells the cameras, like, hey, like, just for a second so I can talk to her. And I now realize that it wasn't to put the cameras away to calm me or to support me. It was to put the cameras away so that what he was saying to me was not recorded.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And what he said to me was, you have no idea. Like, he goes, I know this is probably very hard on you, probably very hard on me. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, probably very hard on you, but I want you to just understand how important what you're doing is and how many people that you're helping. And I remember looking at him and being like, but what the fuck about me? Like, you guys are sitting here sacrificing me for people who don't even know about me yet.
Yeah.
There is no empowerment in this situation at all. You guys, you could have given me a choice. You could have given me a heads up of saying that you're going to shave my head anyway. To be honest with you, I didn't want to shave my head. I was vegan and so skinny like that at the time because that was what I found to like grow my hair back. But that was probably the most hair I had on my head since I was 10 years old. 11 years old, you know.
And
so
they just took that from you.
Yeah, I was very attached to like what little bit was there. But to be honest with you, I feel like the shaving my head was fraudulent. It was trying to force me to fit into a certain demographic of alopecia that I don't have. I've grown through all stages of alopecia. I've had a lot of different things. It can progress, it can regress.
Okay.
But at the time I was dealing with alopecia areata, which is why there were patchy spots. And I feel like if we're truly going to talk about empowering people with alopecia, why not force me to model patchy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the representation.
Embrace
for that,
it.
Because not all people with alopecia have, you know, a skinhead bald look.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, why manipulate it in that way if you're really trying to empower me and a certain group of people? Like, that forces people to look at it as alopecia instead of when it was shaved. I mean, you know how many times I got like, oh, do you have cancer? Are you going through chemo? I'm sorry. Like, no one immediately sees a bald woman and thinks alopecia. They immediately jump to cancer.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's like the patchiness would make somebody think like, oh, well, she's losing her hair in a weird way. Like, to be like, why? Can I ask? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just
and not
like
just assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Ken, you know, he definitely had his hand in that, and it just, for me, it wasn't empowering, and I feel like what he did was disgusting, and the way that he came out, like, nobody hugged me even after he said any of that. Nobody hugged me. They didn't give me a phone to call my mom. Like, it was just.
Yeah.
They literally stripped you, and then
yeah.
No.
Bye.